Hi, this is Graphically Alex coming at you with all things fat related. If that's something that interests you, please subscribe. I'd love to have you. And today we are going to be covering this horrible article. I haven't even read it yet, but this title was so stupid immediately that I was like, I have to read this now. And I think I might read more of this Substack because there's a lot of EFA by letter D stuff going on. I call it the toxic ritualistic on the channel for the record. So I'm going to be probably saying that throughout this video. And I have to be kind of careful and kind of edgy about it. So let's just get into it because I don't even want to leave this on screen that long. Okay, dieting needs to be reclassified as trauma. Food coping behaviors like bingo are often a response to past trauma. Replace that with an E. And I have had people say to me, but I haven't had any trauma in my life and I don't understand my bingoing as a response to trauma when I haven't experienced any. My response when I hear this from those I work with is, have you dieted? So that's not enough. I've told you guys many times, you can, first of all, bingoing one time is not diagnostic criteria for an issue. If something happens once in a vacuum, you're not within the TR. You're not within EFA by letter D. Okay? We have to talk a little differently for the sake of YouTube because they don't like this topic. But basically, you have to meet a certain criterion to be within the issue. You can be subclinical, so you can be kind of like approaching it, but you're not going to automatically have it even if it happens once. It's the same thing with the reductive. If you just, you're not necessarily talking to Anna because you didn't have anything one day. It doesn't work that way. So I call it the toxic ritualistic, and within EFA by letter D, I call it the toxic ritualistic because it is a ritual. So it's a system of belief combined with a system of behaviors. And you have to have both, and they have to happen often enough to a severe enough level for you to actually be within the issue. Once you are in the issue, you can be mild or severe. I tend to group them into two different categories. I tend to group it into mild and severe. I think that's just what I have witnessed a lot when I'm doing this work on the channel and I'm reacting to a lot of these types of content. So I think it's a better way of organizing it from a clinical perspective. Not that I'm a clinician, but I'm somebody that was very severe in it. And again, I do this content all the time. So yeah, but anyways, the point is, you have to be within a certain criteria. So they try to do this where they try to convince anybody and anybody that they have a problem because they're trying to pad the numbers. It's more rare than a lot of these fat activists, haze people would have you believe. It's not that common. So within this too, she's not necessarily defining what a bingo is. So a bingo is, by most people's standards, it is much more than you are thinking. Much more. Okay? There's such a thing as overdoing it or overeat, I have to be kind of careful, but there's such a thing as that, which that's kind of like what most people would do like on Christmas or something. It's like you have a lot that day and that's it. And that's not even a bingo. A bingo is something that happens when triggered by something. So there's a trigger, there's an anxiety response, and then that anxiety response is playing bingo. So you go trigger, anxiety response, behavior. Okay, it's like that. So there has to be that system within it, otherwise it's not. And then when you're dealing with the bingo, it's a lot more than you're thinking. It's a lot to the point of uncomfortability. It's a lot to the point of pain even. It's a lot to the point of massive upsizing very quickly. especially if you have a toxic ritualistic issue or you're within this problem, then you will start upsizing because you have to. There's no way for you to not if you're playing bingo all the time, because it's not something that's cute or fun or easy. It's none of those things. It's a lot. Okay. So I would say when people say like, oh, I've had this issue, but I've never experienced trauma, I would question, one, are they actually having the issue? What are they defining as that? Because people don't define it correctly. Two, this person is ignoring the fact that you can have an issue if you are extremely physically stressed. So something that could cause a bingo in somebody that does not have the issue is, for example, if for whatever reason you were not able to eat for a long, long time, then you might have more of like a physical response to that. And that could be that kind of feeling of uncomfortability after you're very ravenous, right? That could be more similar to that, but see how there's something preceding it, something a little harsh, or you're extremely exhausted, then that can happen too. But it doesn't typically mean you have a problem if it's one time or if it's not within that criteria. So in order for you to have an E followed by the letter D, it has to be often enough. It has to be about once a week for 3 months. So that's a system of behavior, and that would be at a mild level. So obviously if it gets severe, then it's a lot more often. But that's enough. And people can get to that minimum of criteria from prolonged physical stress. So when I talk about that, I'm talking about you're working 80 hours a week, you're not sleeping for months at a time, or you're having like this really bad insomnia spell, right? Where you're not sleeping, you have intermittent access to food for different reasons. It could be poverty, or it could be the way your schedule is. It's just too hard to, like, you just don't have time for it on a systemic basis, right? So it's like every day you're going a very long time without having stuff. And I'm talking like months of that, maybe even like a year or two, and then you could end up having a problem. So where that tends to happen in most people, I've noticed, is like college, university. So it's like you're working a job, you're going to classes, you're partying, you're drinking a lot, and you're doing that for a long period of time. That is very physically stressful. And a lot of people just feel very like invincible because they're young and all that kind of stuff, which I get that. But that physical stress of all of that stuff over months and months, and then you get till finals and you have like the whole cycle of like the beginning of the semester or quarter and then the finals and all that. The stress goes up and all this stuff, and you're physically exhausted. That is a more common cause where you will see people develop toxic ritualistic issues. And they could be reductive, or they could be playing bingo or whatever, anything in between, right? Talking to Mia, etc. It's, even if it's just through, that kind of stuff. I can't really talk about it because YouTube makes it really hard. But that can happen through physical stress, and that would not be trauma. That's just, you're extremely stressed, and that will happen. Or it can happen. That's where you kind of slip into it. Now, people who tend to be more severe, there typically is something that happened. So that's a lot of different things. For me, it was childhood trauma. It was having a parent that dealt with substance abuse issues, unstable living situation for a couple years out of my childhood. It was that kind of long-standing stressful situation, struggling to regulate, that kind of thing over formative years. And that can cause that to happen. Or it could be a lot of people that are severe within the TR. There could be some SA or things of that nature that go on. That could be traumatic. Anything in that realm. Or it could be a sudden death. That could be traumatic. These are things that are more trauma-based, and they typically have to do with being out of control or something being uncontrollable or feeling like your sense of control was taken away from you. Okay. People can also be raised within the toxic ritualistic. So you can have a parent that has an issue and they'll raise you in such a way that it's normalized to you. So you can very easily become subclinical, even if you never fully have the problem. So it could be learned too. So there's a lot of different paths to this, but typically to get severe, your most severe cases, you're going to have a toxic ritualistic foundation. So like within the family, or especially a parent has it, and then it's activated by trauma, and especially in childhood, then it will be very severe. That typically is your most severe cases, is that combination, which I had that. I was raised in it and then activated. So I was very severe. Okay. That's typically what it is. But there's whole shades of gray. There's mild cases, which, like I said, can be caused just due to overstress, and I mean physical stress. So I'm not talking like psychological stress. I'm talking physical stress, not sleeping, intermittent consumption over a long period of time, chronically. And that can cause that too. Okay. So if somebody said that to me, I'd be like, oh, or were you super stressed for like a couple years of your life? And did this start then? You see? So it is possible to have it without being traumatized. Now, at a certain point, if you go deep enough into the TR, that issue is traumatic in and of itself. So it can further activate you to become more severe, or you can be in it mildly and then something happens and boom, you become severe. So that can happen too. Being in a mild case is very, very risky because it can always become severe. So you don't want to be in it, period. You want to get out immediately. Immediately. Okay? We don't tolerate it. I don't co-sign it. oh, society told you this. I don't do that shit. I'm not going to coddle you in it. Get out of it immediately. If you're mild, throw it in the trash now. Because if you wait, if you get severe, it's so much worse. It is so much worse. So get out immediately. So anyways, I don't coddle that. There's no excuses. So not here. No. I don't give a fuck what somebody told you. I don't give a fuck what you're saying the media told you or society or whatever. It's all bullshit and you stop immediately. So again, I'm not co-signing it on this channel. And I don't care if it pisses people off. I really don't. Because I'm not here to enable you. And I'm not here to reinforce you. This thrives through reinforcement. And it's not happening on this channel, period. So you stop immediately. Okay. Anyways. When I started to look at the overlaps between trauma and dieting, it felt clear that dieting is experienced as traumatic in the body. No. So this is just so much of a stretch. It is so beyond. If you were to compare the amount of people that have dieted to the amount of people that have toxic ritualistic issues, it is drastically less. Now, there have been pushes in recent years through HAES and fat acceptance and all that stuff to push the idea that the criteria should be lowered drastically. And they won't say you have an E followed by the letter D. They'll say that you have DIS ordered E. TING, okay? I have to kind of spell things out. I have to play hopscotch with language on this channel, which is annoying to both me and you, more than likely, but I have to work with what I can, right? So when you're doing that, like when they change it to DIS ordered E, TING, that's a way for them to shift the criteria. So it's very manipulative. So people lie all the time within this issue, or they try to slant truths. And again, they're trying to pad the numbers because they want to shield people that actually have the issue from being seen. That's the point. Because they don't want to stop, and you encourage other people that are in it because nobody wants to stop when you're in it. So if you make everybody think they have the problem, then you can hide it easier. Okay, so that's their goal. All right. Trauma is not what happened. It's not about the event, but rather how the body processes and stores that experience. In dieting, what I'm referring to when I say diet is being a part of diet culture that instills shame and dysregulation, being forced into a diet by a parent as a child, being shamed into a diet by a medical professional, pressuring yourself to go on one to alter your physical form out of panic of not adapting to the culture's body ideals. There is constant reduction and fleeing away from food you need, fighting your H, people pleasing to contort your physical form into something it may not want to be, freezing when you have to make a food decision, and collapsing from exhaustion of worrying about what, when, where, and how to consume. Notice how many words I had to change. So what I will say to this is none of these things are trauma. Absolutely none. You have to be extremely privileged to believe that any of those things are traumatic. So if you actually believe that, I believe that you had a very charmed life, or you have certainly never experienced trauma, because none of that is trauma. And the word trauma has been so overly used in recent years, it is ridiculous. So as somebody who has experienced trauma, I have experienced trauma 3 times. So I told you the biggest one, that was the childhood trauma of living with my dad, and he was using substances and stuff. That was the biggest one, and it was the most impactful as I was young and all that stuff, and it was just very hard to live through. The other 2 I went through a social trauma of a personal cancellation in my life. So a scandal in my personal life in my early 20s where I was outright rejected, gaslit, there was narcissistic abuse in that situation. And all that stuff went down, and I was basically persona non grata. I lost a lot of people in my life at the same time, and that was a social trauma, which it was very hard for me, and it did change how I viewed the world. It changed everything. So trauma changes your brain. It changes everything about how you see a situation. So that led me after that to develop, I became a lot more competitive after that. So that was in my early 20s. And then finally, my final trauma was the panini and the isolation involved, combined with severe health issues and approaching death due to the toxic ritualistic. So that they're all kind of lumped together. It's all lumped together. But if I had to say it in one word, I would say I was traumatized by EFA by the letter D. That was the final one. Okay. And that was hard to get over. But obviously in that case, I changed for the better because I got out. So I was like, I'm done. But the health aspects of that, there was a lot. And I've even talked about on the channel, I had an identity crisis and getting out of the health issues and all that stuff. And the DIS order, it was a lot. So if you've been severe, you have been traumatized, in my opinion. If you have been in this issue severely, it is a trauma in and of itself, but it's just self-inflicted, which is so devastating. But yeah, the TR is traumatic, especially at severe levels. If you're not quite severe, you might not quite be there, but you could always get there because it can always get worse. So you get out. Okay. Get out immediately. All right. But however, none of that is that. None of that is TR. None of that is traumatic. It's all BS. So as far as this, being a part of diet culture, so having cottage cheese and rice cakes is trauma. No, it's not. It's shame. Shame is trauma. No. You can be ashamed because you wore the wrong outfit to work one day. You can be ashamed because you have toilet paper stuck to the bottom of your shoe. That is not trauma. No. Dysregulation? No. That isn't trauma either. Not at all. That's just being anxious. Having anxiety is not trauma. Sorry, try again. Being forced into a die by a parent as a child, this is not trauma either. It could be annoying. Annoyance is not trauma. It's not. Now, if your parent was like hitting you over the head with something because of it or something, that could be traumatic. Or if it was this like huge scarring thing, and there's like all these family issues and there's all this stuff, that could be something. But it's not this alone. It could be annoying. But that is what it is. It is annoying. Annoyance is not trauma. So no, try again. Being shamed into a die by a medical professional. No, a medical professional letting you know that you have health issues, like for example, type 2 diabetes, and you need to shift your diet in order to address that and to treat it and possibly even reverse it. Or if you have prediabetes and they want to help you prevent yourself from getting type 2 diabetes, that is not trauma. That is so stupid. Try again. Pressuring yourself to go on a diet to alter your physical form out of panic of not adapting to the culture's body ideals. This could have to do with the toxic ritualistic. So again, that would be E followed by the letter D being traumatic. That can be. But this alone, just looking in the mirror and being like, I want abs, or I want a bigger butt or something. That's not trauma. It's not. Even if you're ashamed, even if you're like, oh my gosh, I have this really ugly hairstyle, that's not trauma. Okay? It's not. Like I said, E followed by the letter D absolutely can be. Absolutely. And in severe levels, it is. Absolutely. But not just being like, oh, I'm not fitting the beauty ideals or whatever. No. That's not trauma either. It can be unpleasant, but it's not going to be something that changes your whole outlook on life or changes the whole way your brain works. That is stupid to act like that. No. Try again. Okay. So let's see. Okay, constant reduction and fleeing away from food you need. I mean, that would be TR. See, so you have to separate the TR from this. So there are levels of severity too, because it's like, what is your inner monologue like about this? So if it's like, okay, I'm trying to avoid sugar, is that like you're fleeing away? No, it's just like having a sense of self-control and being like, okay. If you're dealing with H and you're like in a vanity journey or something, and your HUNGER is at like a 1 to 3 out of 10, and you're just trying to stick to the CalDEF, that's not traumatic. It's not. But obviously at severe levels, or when it gets to be to a certain point, then it can be. People pleasing to contort your physical form into something it may not want to be. Again, if it's TR, then it can be. So that can happen within careers. So something like modeling or sports, it's more common. Then it can be. But in general, people pleasing is not a trauma in and of itself. It can be a response to past trauma, but it's not typically a trauma in and of itself. It's just not necessarily a good thing, which something can be not the best without it being traumatic. Okay? Freezing when you have to make a decision about consumption, that's stupid. I don't even think that really matters. Collapsing from exhaustion. Okay, this is dramatic. This is stupid, and this is giving like theater class. Okay, this is like, I'm just worrying so much. No. Bye. No. Worrying in and of itself is not traumatic. Again, the thought alone is not enough for a TR issue. There has to be action. Okay? If you're just thinking about it, then you're not in it. There has to be action. So no. No. Okay, do you see the nervous system survival responses in there? Flight, fight, freeze, fawn, and flop. They're all playing out while you're dieting. No, but I see the flop of this article. Both trauma and dieting take away your sense of choice. No. Stupid. So trauma isn't always about choice either. So that kind of is betraying this person. The trauma that has to do with choices, that can lead to a toxic ritualistic issue, but it's not always about choice. Again, if you experience a sudden death in the family, that is not a trauma of choice, but it can still be traumatic. Okay? Keep the body in constant dysregulation. I don't think that dieting does that. I'm sorry. Not necessarily. It's usually not constant. So again, if you're talking like vanity levels, I've always told you guys you need to take breaks. So I always advise to not go longer than 12 weeks because you need to kind of give your body a break because you don't have to do it. By definition, it is vanity, which means that it's a choice. So be prudent with those choices. If you're dealing with health issues and you're very, very obese, then you can keep going because you have enough energy on your body. Okay? So, but if you're just in vanity and your weight normalized, then you need to take breaks because your body treats it differently if you're not over. So be aware, like try not to go longer than 12 weeks. I really, really suggest it because if you do, then it can be really tough and it's like, it's not necessarily worth it. Okay. I still don't think it would necessarily be diagnostic criteria, even if you went longer than that, but it's just not necessary. Okay, it's just not. Make the body feel safe to feel unsafe to inhabit? No. I don't think either one inherently does that. So no. Break a sense of trust within yourself. I don't think so. I mean, there's definitely certain ones that do, like narcissistic abuse will do that. So, but I don't think every single trauma does that to a person, you know? And then certainly with dieting, no. Increase the experience of exhaustion, disconnection, anxiety, numbness, and dissociation. I would agree for that with trauma. As far as dieting, depends on how deep for exhaustion. I think there can be anxiety if you're weight normalizing, especially if you have a TR past. Numbness is more so from the TR because you'll get anhedonia. Dissociation, that's also TR. Disconnection, also TR. So the only thing I will give you for dieting alone is exhaustion and anxiety. I do think it can cause those too. But the other ones, if it has to do with your daily habits and it's causing that, or you have a legacy of it, so even if you're out of it, but your brain has the history of it because you've been in it before, you can experience those things, especially that anhedonia. So I've talked about that a lot on the channel. That can happen. And dissociation can happen specifically within binge, within binge at severe levels, or certain people will completely like not even know they engaged in bingo type of thing. Like they'll completely dissociate. And there is a lot of dissociation from the body at severe levels. But again, these are severe cases for the most part. But I think at a mild case, you could still experience disconnection and numbness too with a mild case of the TR. So again, it's a little bit deceptive. So again, let me just reiterate, what I will give dieting is exhaustion and anxiety. I think those two can happen because your body is a little bit stressed. It's like a challenge. So it can be like, it's that type of feeling. So you can be tired, you can be like You get up early, you don't sleep as well. That kind of stuff can happen in a CalDef. Okay. At 13 years old, I now know I was drawn to dye my hair as a response to other traumatic situations in my life. Okay, well, that is TR. Okay, that is E followed by letter D. I was desperate to find some sense of control, TR, and to be able to land safely into something that could hold me the way I needed to be, TR. Dyeing my hair was described as a path towards empowerment, as I could be in control of my physical form and how big it was. Okay. If someone had told me the truth that going on Weight Watchers, I used to call it Weiwa, I almost feel like if you are a millennial, Weight Watchers should be a part of the diagnostic criteria of bingo. Like, it is that common, and I'm sure it's probably the same for my Britishies. It's probably the same with like Slimming World. I know some things. Miss Americana knows some things. Okay, but anyways, but it's probably similar, because it's a lot. And there's a lot of people in the TR that certainly were at Weight Watchers, I remember. So it can kind of be reinforcing. You have to be kind of careful with something like that. But anyways, if someone had told me the truth that going on Weiwa will lead to a lack of trust in your body, obsession with you-know-what for years to come, an intense fear of you-know-what and anxiety around what to consume, and a decade in the blankety-blank cycle, I'm curious if my smart little self would have said, no, thank you. I'll find a different way to feel safe. I think that you would have, if you were on the path to the TR, it's kind of like, see, this is where people get it wrong. It's not necessarily that it's imposed upon you. It's that you look for it. And then people within the issue, they can like suss you out and they reinforce to you. It's very intuitive. It's like extremely somatic. So that's why somebody that's in the issue can literally spot somebody else in the room that has the same issue. It's very visceral and somatic. And I compare it to a zombie outbreak on this channel because it is literally like, you're a zombie too. So we can reinforce each other. It's like that. So you find it, it finds you, it's very reciprocal. So it's kind of like that. So it's like, for example, during the height of body positivity and all that stuff, I found myself watching Freely the Banana Girl. So with all that and all that stuff, I didn't pay attention to any of that crap, and I watched Freely. So it doesn't matter. And it's like, you will find what you're looking for. You will find it. It's how it works. The world will never be so perfect that there's never going to be somebody else in the issue to encourage you. There will always be somebody. That's why I never advise basing your recovery on the state of the world or on everybody else being outside of the issue. That is really stupid. It's very dumb. But anyways, I understand being 13 years old. It's kind of like a semi-blind choice because you're just not mature. But when you are an adult, you need to get out. You need to get help. You need to get the hell out of it immediately, period. So you get out now because you are making a decision to stay in it. Okay? When you're younger, I do think it's more on the parents, definitely, to intervene. And that doesn't always happen, and that's very unfortunate. But it does happen too. People do intervene for their kids. Okay. Anyways. Those who have experienced post-traumatic stress disorder often describe feeling on high alert all the time, live in a hypervigilant state, feel numb, detached, isolated, worthless, have trouble sleeping, experience nightmares and flashbacks, avoid certain places, people, or even conversations, and generally feel inherently unsafe. This is exactly what I've heard those I work with describe what it has been like since they went on their first dyeing their hair. You may feel like you're on high alert all the time, especially to your H and fullness cues. Sense that you need to be hypervigilant around stuff at the grocery store, or else something bad will happen. Are dissociated from your body. This is trauma, honey. No, this is not a diet. If you're on this level, you likely have trauma. This is traumatic. This is a trauma response. This is not normal. I'm just going to tell you. Like, if you're reaching this, there's something seriously wrong. This is very abnormal. This is a huge red flag of the TR. If you feel dissociated from your body, you need to really figure out what the hell's going on, because it is not normal. It's not normal. It's not. And feel like you have no idea what it needs, decreased sense of self-worth and purpose, have trouble sleeping from either not having enough throughout the day or playing bingo right before bed, avoid people who trigger impulses to do things, and generally feel inherently unsafe every day. So I think if somebody's trying to get you back into the TR, there might need to be a little bit of avoidance from those people, a little bit, until you can kind of get your sea legs in recovery. But if you're like, you have to be careful with that, because avoidance, I believe, it's a compounding factor in the TR. People will use the TR to distance themselves from others, and whether that's the reductive side or whether that's playing bingo or, anything in between. People will use the rituals, they'll use the state of their physical form to create distance from other people, or to say, I can't do this because of how I look. So if you're doing that, you're using it as an excuse. It's like you need to own your decision to not go to something. You need to own that you're making choices. Because if you're using that, it's like within bingo, it's all the people that say, I'll do that when I downsize. I'll do that when I downsize. I'll wait until I downsize. I'll wait until I downsize. When you're doing that, you're using your physical form to avoid things and people. That is TR. It's not good, and it's a huge toxic ritualistic drive, because then you'll create this fantasy that of like thin privilege and that whole thing, where you create such a huge psychological chasm between who you are now and who you would be if you were thin. And that's very unhealthy, and that's very reinforcing. So you have to stop that immediately. No. Don't use it to avoid. Now, obviously, if you're very big and there's physical limitations and stuff like that, that makes sense, but it has to be physically grounded in reality. It's not. Otherwise, say, I don't want to go. Or let yourself really make the decision and be like, well, I just don't want to, or I'm avoiding this. So try to separate it from the TR, because that's its own issue. Avoidance is already a problem in and of itself. You don't need it to be attached to the TR and then compounding. Just separate it out. You need to deal with one thing at a time. That's what I tell people all the time when it comes to this issue. You need to hone in on this. Auntie me, I was still pretty avoidant when I was out of the TR. I dealt with that later. Your priorities, okay? You got to get out of the TR. You got to get out. That's going to kill you. Avoidance, it's not good. It's horrible. It's gross. We all hate it. I get it. All my anxious girlies and boilies, my anxiously attached girlies and boilies, I'm sure you guys have all been just burned by an avoidant person. It is horrible. I don't accept it. I'm not avoidance acceptance. But as awful as it is, it wasn't going to kill me. Okay. The TR was going to kill me. So that was the priority. But I dealt with the avoidance after. And once you get out of this TR thing, you'll be very empowered to continue to grow even beyond weight normalization. because there's a lot of personal growth within TR recovery. But anyways, okay, let's continue. This is why I've approached food recovery as I would support anyone in trauma recovery. Dyeing your hair has moved your body into a survival response, and your nervous system has adapted to the rules. Food, H, and satiation now equal threat and danger. Meals are battlegrounds. H and blank equal safety. So no, not in the case of bingo. That's not true. But they typically don't acknowledge bingo as a thing. Dissociation then occurs to keep you safe from the experiences of the TR so that your body can get the nutrients it needs it needs to continue to try to stay away from you know what for you. So I don't agree with this. This is more of like that's kind of more of a talking to Mia thing that can happen, I think. As far as the bingo side, typically within bingo itself, so like if you have hinge, if you have that problem, binge, it's not really about the nutrients unless if you're having that reductive phase, then it can be. But it's certainly not about like H, because a lot of times you're not. Like you'll experience H way less than other problems. I'll put it to you that way. Drastically less. Even when I was doing the reductive side of the toxic ritualistic or my, binge issue, I was, for example, doing keto and my cals were significantly, whatted. They were less. I have to be so careful with how I talk. I'm so sorry. But I was still consuming quite a bit. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was not like that reductive where it was like that other kind of issue. You get what I'm saying? So I wasn't really experiencing H that much. I'll put it to you that way. When you try to leave diet culture, your body panics. Being a part of diet culture can feel like armor. No. So they often will use diet culture as a stand-in for the TR. So as far as that, yes, it can feel like armor. That's true. But I don't like that. I feel like it romanticizes it too much, and I don't think it ever makes you feel that safe. So I'm not going to accept that. But that I can see why she's saying that, because she's still in it, clearly. But I would say it creates a sense of predictability, which that predictability creates a sense of control. So when you go to leave it, when you go to leave the TR, then you fear what could happen. And that's one of the greatest triggers of recovery. And that's especially, I talked a lot about it in my tortured era. For those of you guys who were around a couple years ago when I was in that morbidly obese phase, I called it my tortured era of recovery, where I was outside of E followed by the letter D. And I was struggling with the trigger of not knowing what would come next because I wasn't a part of that anymore. And so it was gone. It was over. So I was like, I don't know what's going to happen. And I was scared. So it's not really armor. It's predictability. Predictability disguised as control. That's what it is. So predictable failure or a predictable success, quote unquote. But that's what it is. Okay. You know how you will feel. See, she's even saying, you know this, you know that, right? You know how you will feel when you do something. You know what is going to happen. See, it's the predictability. You know what is going to happen. See, when you reduce certain things, you know how you will feel after playing bingo, and you know the thoughts and plans that will occur day after day and Monday after Monday. That is the predictability. That's what you're looking for. And you have to accept that life is unpredictable, that you can't control everything. And that's really, really hard to accept. And it can feel like, it literally feels like an ego death, especially at severe levels. And I don't think people that haven't had it can ever really understand what that is like. But it's like, for me, it was like a feeling of like absolute gnashing of my teeth and like wanting to scream at the sky and just like pure panic, which is like so crazy to say out loud. But it was really hard. But it's like you have to face your fears. And it's so hard. And if you're very severe, it can be that way. And when you leave it, you can have nightmares and you can have like these weird psychological symptoms and stuff. And you have to do body reintegration and that kind of thing. So people, they get scared because they feel that stuff and they're like, oh my God, what the hell is happening to me? I feel worse, or I don't know, I think I'm going to die or something. You feel like you're going to die. You feel like if you leave, you're going to die. But it's not true. And what I'm trying to tell you cognitively is it's not about you're going to die. It's about you don't know what comes next. And that's what's bothering you so much. It's the unpredictability of recovery. What happens to me if I leave this? That's what it is. And if you can accept that you're not going to know, but that it could be good, there could be bad, there could be good. It's probably going to be a mix of things. But if you can accept that, then you will let it go. You will drop it like a sack of potatoes. Because you know it's bullshit. I know it's bullshit. We all know it is bullshit. You know that it's wrong. You know it's not working. But you can't handle the uncertainty. And that's why you stick with it. So I'm telling you, freak out, scream, cry, whatever. But deal with the uncertainty and you will break out of it. That's what's keeping you in it. Okay? All right. Taking the armor off can feel terrifying because safety is connected with what is known. See, again, predictability. Even if you can sense that the armor isn't actually protecting you anymore but inhibiting your ability to move, there is comfort in the predictability. She literally uses the word. That's what it is. Dyeing your hair keeps you coming back because the safety of the known feels more stable to inhabit than the possibility of safety waiting for you in the unknown. So I agree with this. I do agree with that. It's hard to no longer be able to use it as an excuse. It's hard to not be able to depend on your physical form to determine the outcomes of social situations. It's hard to find yourself again. These things are hard. It's hard to express yourself socially without it. That's something I dealt with a lot in the mid-size phase when I was breaking away from the fat herd. I was no longer fat. That's hard to do. Those things are challenging, but you do the work and you do it and you're going to be fine. Okay? I really want to take a moment to normalize how scary and anxiety-provoking no longer. I will change it for the sake of accuracy. No longer being in the TR will be. Your body is biologically no, your body doesn't want to be in it. Your body is like, bitch, what the fuck are you doing? That's what your body's thinking every day. Your body is like, what the hell is going on? So no, your body does not want to be in it. This is just your mental illness. It's your mental illness and your attempt at coping with anxiety. That's what it is. Well, also, okay, your body is biologically terrified, is not going to get enough to survive, while also navigating somatic memories and associations that stuff at the grocery store is dangerous. This is not as simple as just stop dyeing your hair. True for the TR, not true for somebody who's just trying to shed 5 pounds for the summer or something. It's like, this is so extreme. And if you wanted to talk about DIS ordered eating, that's a better way to talk about it. This is not dyeing your hair. I have to call it that because Anita. To stabilize from the trauma of dyeing your hair is a process of repetitively experiencing that it is safe to have stuff. It is safe to have it consistently. It is safe to interact with a variety of stuff that resonate with your body, and that nothing bad is going to happen. I think this can be very true in the case of Mia. I think that's helpful in that case. This is why it's important to find, it can be true with talking to Anna too, but especially the types, I feel like that's more, because within Mia, you're playing bingo too, so it's a little bit different than the other ones, because it's that, it's the in-between, right? But if you're playing bingo, you're usually not scared of stuff at the grocery store. You're more scared of physical activity. So I would say, like, it's safe to move, safe to exercise. It's safe to exercise consistently, safe to do a variety of activities that your body can physically handle. That's what I would say for somebody dealing with bingo. That's that helpful advice, because it's like you're nervous. You get very nervous about it, and you're going to be okay. It's like, well, can I go to the gym? Should I go to the gym? I don't know. You can go. You're going to be fine. Can I get on the machine and just don't lift too much? You'll be okay. It's that kind of thing. But people get nervous in that way within bingo. Okay. Anyways. This is why it is important to find community who is also committed to leaving diet culture. Oh my God. Diet trauma recovery does not happen in isolation, and co-regulation is crucially important to make sure you don't feel alone as you enter into a safe and trusting relationship with your food and body. So I worry about this because, first of all, you can actually recover in isolation. It's possible. So that's BS. Because at its core, it is self-inflicted. So I think it's always helpful to have recovery reinforced. That's part of my activism. That's what I do on this channel, is I try to reinforce recovery. But there are a lot of people who reinforce the issue too. So you have to be very careful about that kind of thing. And you have to not listen to people that are in it. The way that I describe it is, think of it like a Netflix subscription and just be like, they're still subscribed and I'm not. You have to create those cognitive barriers in your mind. So it's like, they're still in it, but I'm not. So I don't listen. You have to think of it that way, especially when you have people in your life that are within the issue, that are trying to reinforce you. You have to just be like, they're still in it, but I'm not. And you can't control if somebody else is in it. So again, you got to let go of that, of trying to control that. You can't. You have to focus on yourself. You have to focus on your own recovery. So you can't do that. Okay? Anyways, if you're ever looking for more support, blah, 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 blah. Okay. That's it. That was a lot longer than I thought it was going to be. But I hope it was helpful, and I will talk to you guys later. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for subscribing. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you all so much. And this whole journey has been such a mutually healing thing. And I just want to say I'm really grateful for that. I will talk to you guys soon. See you tomorrow. Bye.